So hello and welcome everyone to this webinar on how you can start using Teams more effectively within your business. So Teams is the communication app at the heart of Microsoft 365. It's widely used already, but many people are either using just the basics or possibly not using it correctly or not at all. So hopefully this webinar will be a very quick whistle-stop tour of Teams, and hopefully we'll show you some of the ways of using it and getting more from it. So I've got 11 different areas that I'm going to go through, but they will be pretty quick as we go through. But please do use the chat function to ask any questions as we go, and will do a Q&A at the end. So please feel free to do that. So what is Microsoft Teams and using it better for your business? So first of all, this is where a lot of people, if you're already using Teams, I often find that people never actually did this. So first things first, you need to decide when and how you're going to use Teams. Because most businesses, let's say up until a couple of years ago, their main communication tool was either sending letters or email. And then lots more communication tools came out, whether it's things like Slack or whether it's other communications. But you might also be using other tools that are for business that may be for personal, and there's quite a bit of crossover. So I'd say firstly, you want to start with the rules of Teams that fits your team and your business. It's a communication tool, but why and when should you use it rather than other tools? We don't want you to get bloat either. So bloat is when you've got so many different communication tools, no one knows what to do and when to use it. So will you only use it internally? So when should you use Teams? When should you use email? Now, this is really for you guys to decide, but generally the way that Teams is built is it's for fast communication and meetings. So for example, if you've got some information that you want to send to a colleague, if it's things like attachments and things, then you may still want to use email. Whereas if it's just asking them a quick question, then Teams is a really good tool because it's just nice and fast. You just select on the team, on the member or the group, and away you go. You just ask the questions. But remember, it's all about making sure that it's as easy as possible for you and your team, and everyone understands how best to use it. Now, on a separate note, just be careful when it comes to things like WhatsApp. So the big thing with Teams is that it's a business tool. So generally, people understand the rules of using Teams. If you're going to get a message in Teams or you're going to send a message, then that's a business topic. Now, when it comes to HR issues, and certainly with changes in government and things like that, what you don't want to do is, if you're generally using WhatsApp for business use, and whether it's individual or you've got maybe a big WhatsApp group for work, it's making sure that you're using it in the correct way. Because if people don't want to be contacted for business in their personal time, then they should be able to switch it off. But if they're using WhatsApp personally, then this will be difficult. Whereas Teams can be really good because they can effectively set Teams as out of office, or you can actually go in and change the times and days when Teams will work, and then they can be cut off from the business, which is completely their choice. So it's all about deciding that up front. So then let's talk about setting up the basics. So if you've been using Teams for quite a while, it's always worth reviewing this. So the basics are, it's always good to have a picture on there, correct contact information. This is generally for the business, but it's making sure that you've got the right information on there as well. And availability and schedule. Now, the really good thing with this is it will automatically flip over what different availability you've got. So whether you're available, busy, do not disturb. This can also sync in with your calendar as well. So if you've got appointments and things in your calendar, this can pull through. But the other quite good feature that they've relatively recently brought through is the duration. So if you're going into a meeting, or maybe you've got some kind of prep work that you want to do and you don't want to be disturbed, then you can go in and say, put me on do not disturb for, let's say, an hour or two, and then it will flip back into being available. So that's really good. And that is say around your profile. But just make sure that your company info is correct. Also, remember that LinkedIn is owned by Microsoft. So Teams and LinkedIn do merge well together. And there is actually a section within the profile in Teams that talks about your LinkedIn profile. So try and get them both really super succinct and it will work well together. Especially there's also things in LinkedIn that prompt across to Teams. So that's well worthwhile. Then the next stage is have a think about whether you want to, you've got chats and you've got channels. They're the two different types of conversations that you can have within Teams. So generally a chat is a private chat between either you, an individual, or multiple people. So you can create a chat and then bring in multiple people to it, or have chats with all those individual people. Then the next stage is you can have channels. Now these, you get a lot more flexibility out of them. So you can create a team and then you can build the team from scratch, and it can either be organization wide or just individual names. So for example, you can have a team channel, and then underneath that, you can actually have out different priorities and different types of people that are within that same channel. This is also when it comes to whether you have standard, which is everyone in your team, a shared. So a shared channel means that it's either with internal and external people, or a private channel, which means as default, there's no one in it, and then you manually add the people that you want. So for example, if you're a company of 20 people and you've got, let's say 3 or 4 managers, you would create a private channel called managers and then add in each manager, only the ones that you want access to that channel. Whereas if you have standard, it will pull in the entire team. Now with the shared, this is really important because once you decide how you're going to use Teams, if you're going to start using Teams for, let's say, clients or suppliers, then this is where you would create a shared channel, call it suppliers, for example, and then underneath that, you'd have different teams and chats for the different suppliers. So, and the other really cool thing is you can actually organize them. So you can also add bookmarks to conversations, but you can pull conversations and channels to the top of your list if you want. So it's a really good way of going through it. But yeah, there's a clear difference. You've got chats and then you've got channels, albeit just to confuse it. To select a channel, you click on Teams, and then within that Teams tab, that is all your channels. So, and these are all down, depending on how you've got it set up, down the left-hand side of your screen. Now, the next part is that it's super flexible. Flexible means you can use it anywhere. So you might have a laptop, a Mac, or an iPad, and you can run it on there, but also then you can have it on your mobile. So if you're out and about, it's really quick and easy to either stay in touch or just to drop quick messages or to keep an eye on channels. So creating meetings is super simple. Now, if you're a Microsoft user and you're using Microsoft Outlook, then you can actually merge them together in terms of you can be in Outlook, create a meeting, and there was a tab on there that says create it as a Teams meeting. And that means that it will add it as a normal meeting, but you can, and as default, it will ask you for a location. So you might put whether it's a physical address, but you can then select it as a Teams meeting, and then it will pull in all the Teams information with the link so that people can join on. But if you create a meeting within Teams, it gives you a lot more functionality. You can see on here the templates. It enables you to create a webinar. We're running this webinar on Teams. You can do a town hall event. You can do a virtual appointment. You can do controlled content meetings, and you can do live events. So there's lots of different ways that you can schedule meetings and individual meetings. So whether you just create as a calendar note, and these all sync back through your Microsoft calendar as well. So it's really, really flexible. Now, here's the big game changer. It's why is Teams such a good tool for your business? And it's all to do with the apps that it migrates into. And I've broken this down into two different sections. We've got Microsoft apps, and then you've got third-party apps. So when it comes to Microsoft apps, these are the main ones. There are numerous. Generally, if you're a Microsoft 365 user, when you log into office.com, top left, there's 9 little dots. You can click on that and you can look at all the apps that you get in your Microsoft suite, again, depending on the license that you've got. But the main ones that we find really, really good that work within Teams. Now, this is the power of it. You can be inside Teams and then select these different apps, use the apps while you're still within Teams. And this is the big shift that you need to make when you're getting, if you want to get the most out of Teams. It's all to do with you're in Teams, and then you can work really, really well within Teams. You're not constantly flicking different screens, but you can use within it whether it's Microsoft Bookings, Planner, SharePoint, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, all of the main apps that Microsoft are known for, and you're probably used to using them individually, you can pull into here. So it's all about collaboration, being able to see the apps and work on things together. So, for example, you might be running through a spreadsheet. You've got questions to ask on someone else within that spreadsheet. You can jump straight into Teams. You can then be talking and seeing each other and also editing that same document all within Teams. So it's really, really slick, so efficient to use. So, for example, with bookings, now here's the power of bookings. With Teams, you can go in, you can see your availability through your calendar, but then you need to manually book the time slots if you're having a meeting with someone. Whereas if you set up bookings, you can then create the type of availability you want. You can then email or Teams that person the link. They can then click on that and then book using your calendar. So it's really powerful. It's all around sharing your availability. Same with Planner. Planner's a fantastic little app that works really well within Teams. But again, you can use Planner for all of your quick to-dos and your tasks, and you might then use the Planner app on your mobile. So when you're out and about, you're remembering, oh, I need to do that. You can really quickly add it using the Planner app when you're on your mobile. Then when you get into the office and you're using your desktop or your laptop and you open up Teams, you've then got the Planner app that you can go straight into. So it makes it really, really slick and a lot quicker and easier, and not then having to go into all these separate apps. And then the final side that we use a lot is SharePoint. So if you've got all of your data within SharePoint, you can then access it fully within Teams. So then it comes to when you want to share it, if you want to quickly upload, whether it's a file or a folder or a link to that file or folder, you can do it really, really quickly within Teams. So it's a really nice, slick, efficient way. And then the next part is using third-party apps in Teams. Now, there are literally hundreds. There's actually just over 1,900 different apps that sync and collaborate with Microsoft Teams. So an example would be if you use a separate app, something like Trello for your business. So what you might do is you'd still use Trello because Trello has fantastic functionality to be able to create projects and enable you to tag in different people and all of that side of things. So you'll still use Trello as you've always used it. But the power of Teams is you can then do it that if someone else communicates within Trello, maybe they switch a job from in mids to added on, or whether they just message you through it, it means that you can add Trello in as a chat function. So then you just get a pop-up and you can actually then read what someone's done in Trello without you having to come out of Teams into Trello to look what's going on, then back into Teams. So it just makes it super slick. It's all about just making it really, really easy and you not having to keep constantly changing, coming in and out of programs and jumping around. Next part is using the search function. So you've got the search function at the top of Teams, and the nice thing is that it will search within Teams, as opposed to, I know that using Microsoft Windows 10 or 11, you use the search function there and it searches the web and your main machine and everywhere else. Great thing with Teams is it does centralize it within Teams. But you can also then do things like, if you're searching for a subject, you can type in subject with the splats either side, and then it will then type in what you're searching for, and it will only search the subject of your different Teams chats. Same with, you can do, whether you go to your sent items, your in items, there's lots of different functionality. Once you then get really good on Teams and use it a lot, you can then start doing the short keys as well, which are really handy. So for example, Control and N will bring up a new chat, or Control Shift and R will record what you're doing within the meeting. So there's lots of different short keys. Again, we can send you lists of these if you want. But yeah, Control and E is the search function. So nice and easy, but plenty of functionality there just to make it a little bit quicker and a little bit swifter when you really start using Teams a lot more. Now, here's one of the features that so many people never knew that you could do. Again, Teams is built so that you're using Teams and you can then have the communication. But the really cool thing is that people can email straight into Teams. Now, why would you want this? For example, you might have different clients that email you a lot, and you can then give them the external email address. Bang, it goes straight into the chat. It then correlates your internal communication with that client with the external. But also, say, for example, you buy products. So you can have suppliers that you can then just add into this. So you would give them the specific email address for that channel. Then whenever you order something, you get an automated invoice or an automated message saying that when the delivery is going to come. Well, rather than it going into your email address, your email inbox, or someone else's, it can just go straight into a Teams channel. So then, if, for example, you've got 3 people that do purchasing within your business, it goes straight into there. It's super easy. Also, if you're using a modern phone system and someone leaves either you or a company-wide voicemail, and it currently goes from voicemail to email, you can set it so that it will go so that the voicemail WAV file, it's called basically the music file, will actually go straight into Teams. So again, rather than you looking at your emails or the email going to the wrong person, it can just go straight to the channel, and then you can control who has access to that channel. So it can really, really work so well, and the functionality, it just makes life easier, and that's what it's all about. So in terms of for this, super easy to get the external email address that you would then need to give to that person or that supplier. All you do is you go into the channel. So press on the Teams button, channel comes up, then you've got the different conversations underneath it. You literally right click and it says it there, get email address. And then you can select who can email to that, because also we want that extra layer of security if you need it, depending on the channels. So you've got anyone can send to that email address, only members of the team, or specific domains. An example might be, let's say you've got a client, joeblogs.com is their domain. So you might deal with joe@joeblogs.com. You can select it so that only people from the joeblogs.com domain can send to that channel. So it really does improve the security. And this is why we would always say, if it's specific things, we would say set up different client channels for different clients. So, but it's a really handy way. Now, we can't have a webinar in 2024 without using the word AI. So yes, there is AI in Teams. It's Microsoft's version, so it's Copilot. But of course, I know everyone's heard of ChatGPT. The biggest shareholder in ChatGPT is Microsoft, so the back end of it is very similar. But you can use Copilot within Teams. Now, what does it do? Now, here's a word of warning. The thing is with AI, it doesn't necessarily do vast amounts at the moment, but AI, as of today's date, is the worst it will ever be. Yes, there's lots of glitches and functionality can be better, but it's more about getting used to using AI. And then as AI improves, you and your business will be on top of using it and you'll start to get the most from it. But some examples of how we're using Copilot within Teams. It's great for dictating meetings. So let's say that you have daily or weekly huddles and team meetings and you can't make one of them. You can just go straight into the meeting and just ask Copilot, please send me a breakdown of who was at the meeting, what actions were spoken about, and who's doing what. And then it will go through the entire meeting, and then it will give you a nice little breakdown of everything that happened and any forward actions. So it can be really, really useful. Also, you can just ask for a quick summaries and asking for actions around the agreed meetings. The other thing you can then do is, let's say, for example, you're driving and you want to catch up, you can go in, get this information from Copilot, and then ask it to speak it back to you. So then as you're driving along, you'll get a really quick 20, 30, 40, 50-second summary of what happened in the meeting. So it can be really, really handy. You can also use it for recorded meetings. So let's say, for example, you have a sales webinar with someone, it lasts for 45 minutes. Then you have a follow-up meeting with them a couple of weeks later and you just want to be reminded on what you spoke about. You can go in and Copilot will pull all of that information together rather than you having to listen to the 45 minutes again. So it can work really, really well. And then our final point on this whistle stop webinar of Teams is make sure that you have a separate cloud backup. So if you start to use Teams a lot more, you'll start to get more information in there, more documents, more files, more pictures, more overall chats. So you don't want to lose it. So as with any Microsoft product, Microsoft themselves always recommend that you have a separate backup. So a cloud backup, make sure it's fully automated, and then just as you use Teams a lot more, it will be backing it up. So it's so important that you're always backing it up so that as Teams grows, you'll start using it more, you'll build more into the profile and more onto the functionality, and you don't want to lose it. So that's our whistle stop tour for our webinar on Teams. Hopefully you found it really useful. Again, any questions, please follow us on social media, but also if you've got any questions, please put them in the chat now, and then I'd be very happy to go through it. So let's have a look. Here we go. So how much storage does it take? It takes as much storage as you need it to. Teams is built around 1,000 people is where it kind of was built to start with, because it was an enterprise product. So it will handle so many different conversations. And as I say, you can bookmark things. But if you're going to be using it for storing pictures and documents and things, the data will mount up. But we found that it's worked really, really well. Can you use multiple accounts? Yes, you can. So depending on your business, top right of your Teams screen, it will show you that it's got your company domain in there. But what you can also do is you can add on other ones depending on the licenses that you've got. So if you've got multiple companies, maybe you work for multiple businesses, then you can add that on and you can really quickly go in and switch it. Can you use Teams offline? Yes, you can. All of the data is locally stored to that device, but remember, if it's offline, then if you're sending any chats or receiving any chats, then you won't, you won't obviously receive them until it goes back online. So. How much does Teams cost? Well, depending on what license you've got, if it's any license from before May of 2024, Teams was a free element within the Microsoft standard licenses. So essentially it will be free. If it's after May that you took out your first Office license, then there is a small charge. It's around £3 per month. So let's just have a look on. Here we go. How do I integrate Teams with PSTN calling? So PSTN calling, this is the, obviously when you've got VoIP systems, but PSTN is the older style analog lines. So you can actually make phone calls within Teams. You can set this up through direct routing, depending on which calling plan you've got, either with your phone system or Microsoft do calling plans. Generally, their calling plans are quite expensive, so using a third-party app is usually easier and preferred. You'll get more functionality out of that as well. Oh, here's the question that we do get asked quite often. Is Teams better than Zoom? Well, it all depends. Teams generally is the best for integration. So using it with multiple Microsoft apps, if you use Microsoft, then generally it's just really good for that because that's how they built it. But Teams, Zoom does have really good functionality when it comes to holding meetings and doing additional things in meetings, things like polls and graphics and things. So, but generally we say that it's personal preference. But if you're already using Microsoft 365, then generally we'd say, use it, try and use it as much as you can within. So how do you use Copilot in Teams? So Copilot in itself is a separate element within Microsoft that you do have to subscribe to. The price is around £30 a month. So if you subscribe to Copilot, you actually get Copilot within all of the Microsoft applications. So what you need to do is you go into your Office package and activate Microsoft Copilot. I think generally they give you a 30-day free period. So you can try using it, see how you get on, and then just use it from then on. But yeah, it's you need to activate it first, but then you can also within Teams, depending on how you've got it set up, down the left-hand side on the bottom, it says apps. If you click on apps, then search for Copilot, you can then add Copilot within Teams. So it's relatively quick to set up. But all I would say is with Copilot is a lot of companies have rolled it out for people and they're not necessarily using it. So use Copilot, get used to it. It's a really, really good tool. But also, if you have got Copilot, it's really good for things like writing emails, using it in Word and PowerPoint. So it's a really powerful tool. But just remember to be patient with it. It's getting used to using Copilot. It's, AI is super powerful, but it's just getting used to using it in your everyday life. Okay, so I think that's all the questions. If anyone else has got any questions, please do add any questions, or anyone would like any additional help. If not, say my name's Giles. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to email me or find us on social media. So Syn-Star is always putting updates around Microsoft products and most other technology that's going to help your business. So check us out on YouTube and all the major social media platforms. So wish you a very happy rest of your day. I hope you enjoyed that. And yeah, please do email me with any comments or if there's any subjects that you'd like us to cover.